Hey guys, what is up? Austin here, aka Bowtie Guy 97. Today we're gonna have a video about what happens when you hit 300,000 miles on a 5.3 Silverado. And yes, this one is over 300,000 miles. But before we get started on that, because we got the new year coming up, I want to give y'all a question. Do y'all want to see me do exhaust to the truck first or change out the light bar? And by exhaust, we will be doing true duals out the back with tips and everything. We would travel down to a shop down in North Carolina to get it done. But so your options are doing the exhaust, or the light bar would be another 31.5 inch that we would put behind the grill, exactly where that one is, except we would get one that's like color strobing and stuff like that. It wouldn't just be a light bar. So comment down below and let me know what you would like to see, and whichever ones get the most votes, I will do it first. We'll do both of them, but whichever one y'all vote on, I'll do it within the next couple of weeks. So that's coming up, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So if you are new to my channel, this truck is a 2004 Chevy Silverado 1500 with the 5.3 liter Vortec V8. Do not let the look of the truck fool you. It has 302,000 miles on it. I clicked over 300,000 a couple weeks ago, and I planned to do a video, and now I'm finally doing it. The reason I'm doing it here in my driveway, one is because I used to always do my videos here, and two, it's because that Silverado is a 2011 and it is my dad's, and he actually has over 200,000 on that. We drive these trucks all the time up and down the interstate to get a whole lot of highway miles, so I thought it'd be very appropriate to have them sitting here side by side so we can talk about what mileage does to these trucks. Now, what I'm going to talk about is everything that I've had to replace within the 300,000 miles, how long things have lasted, and what has recently come up once I got close to the 300,000 mark. I want you to keep in mind, this truck was built in 2004. That makes it, what is it, 14 years old? If you want to count 2018, we're almost 14 years old and 300,000 miles. So when I start listing off these things, understand 14 years and 300,000 miles it took to break all of this stuff, you know, and it is a list because it's very old and that's a lot of miles. I'm also going to talk about the newer generation Silverados and what has gone wrong in 200,000 miles on that one. So this video is going to be a pretty good comparison and try to kind of give you an idea on the build quality and what happens when you take care of these trucks. That being said, before I start listing off things that have broken, this is going to vary wildly. This is just a video on what I experienced in 300,000 miles, or this truck experienced in 300,000 miles. And maintenance, regular maintenance, what you do with the truck, how you treat the truck, where the truck is located at, north or south, is going to have everything to do with what is going to go wrong on it first. So this is more of kind of a very primitive guideline on what you could expect if you buy one of these trucks with these many miles, but there is no telling what could happen. You could get a truck that blows up at 50,000, you could have a truck that goes to 500,000 miles and blows up. So, you know, it varies wildly. But let's get talking about what I have had to replace on this truck. Of course, there's aftermarket accessories that did not have to be replaced, but things that broke that had to be done. First off, and the worst thing about this generation truck, power steering pumps. This truck was absolutely terrible. It is on its third power steering pump and second power steering box. The box actually was not the truck's fault. The pump was going out and it was ran on a bad pump for too long and it wore the box out. And the box was still okay, but I actually decided to replace it anyway just to have a full new steering system in there. So, but regardless, it's still 2 power steering boxes and 3 power steering pumps. That is stupid to have that many power steering pumps go bad, but I almost don't want to blame the truck fully for that, because the ones that go back in it are from an aftermarket distributor, like from Advanced Auto Parts, and it's kind of their fault that they seem to keep going out. But the truck, I just don't think is real easy on them, and that could also have something to do with it. The second thing that has been the most broken and the most ridiculous is hub assemblies. If you have a four-wheel drive, you know you have hub assemblies. It's not wheel bearings. The wheel bearing is inside of the hub itself. You got to replace the whole assembly if that goes out. This truck has had 2 per side put on it, and there's a couple reasons for that. For one, the truck does go off-road. I used to off-road it a good bit, and that wore them both out on one side. But previously, the owner had the actual wheel get hit. And what I mean by that is the wheel was turned while it was parked, and if you know a truck, the tire will kind of stick out. And somebody had actually hit the tire, which jolted the hub and everything, and it actually broke the hub when it was hit. There was no body damage done, it's just where it hit the wheel, and that's why the first one had to be done. The second one just wore out on its own. But that is 2 per side that have gone out on this truck. So the power steering pumps and the hub assemblies are the 2 things that have gone out multiple times in this truck and have been kind of annoying. The third thing is the gauge cluster on the inside, and this will give me a chance to prove to y'all that it has 300,000 miles, just in case somebody doesn't believe it. The gauge cluster, if you see here, I actually have a aftermarket gauge cluster, or just the plate of it is aftermarket. The whole instrument panel and all that is all the same as the truck that you may have, but it's just a kit from US Speedo. But see if you can see it. 300,000 miles. The sun's kind of blocking you there. 302,235. The gauge cluster, the stepper motors tend to go out in these trucks, and that's a big problem that they have. And all the lights go out, and that one's already doing it again. That lasted until I think just at 200,000 miles. The stepper motor failed, and the oil pressure, the engine temperature, and the speedometer. And I think once the gas gauge went, the previous owner decided to replace it. So it made it to about 200,000 miles without having that done. And then after that, it was a whole nother about 40,000 miles until anything needed to be done. I mean, of course there's regular maintenance like brakes and belts and, you know, oil changes and tires and stuff like that, but that's regular maintenance stuff. But it wasn't until 250,000 miles that I had to do a water pump. So it went tens of thousands of more miles and never had any more problems. The water pump went out at about 253,000 miles. It was right before I went off to college, and so I had a water pump put in it, and it was leaking terribly. Something went wrong in it, and it was just blowing coolant out everywhere. So I had that replaced at 250,000 miles. Now, after I had that done, we went a whole nother 30,000 miles until stuff really started to wear out and break on the truck. At the 280,000 mark, you're getting ready to see what happens when you start getting to close to 300,000 miles. At 280,000 miles, everything really started to go on me. It started with tie rod ends. They didn't break. They were really worn out. I had those replaced. Then we ran into upper ball joints at about 288. We did the upper ball joints. Then it was lower ball joints at about 292,000. So we had to do the lower ball joints, and the CV axles were also broken out. If you've watched any of my other videos, the lift kind of had part to do with that. So the CV axles were replaced at the same time the lower ball joints were. And then at 296,000 miles, the 4L60E that is in the truck went out. And you guys saw that if you've been subscribed to me for a while. So at 296, the first major thing went out, and that was the transmission. It broke the band for second and fourth, and it only had 2 gears. So if you ask me, the truck, it wasn't that the truck wasn't babied its whole life. It pulled trailers, campers, and you know, I wasn't easy on it either. 296,000 miles on a transmission, I think, is very, very good, especially one that was treated like this one was. I don't think that's anything to be upset about at all. I think that is to be expected. So it took 13 years and 296,000 miles to blow out the transmission, and that was the first major thing that went wrong. That was a $2,500 expense. Now the second thing, which I just got it back from, and I'll need to make a video on it, at 302,000 miles, the front differential decided to go out. It was completely worn out. About every bearing inside of it was done. It was leaking fluid everywhere. It was just an all-at-once type thing, and I had to get that rebuilt. So that was just rebuilt, and that took 302,000 miles in almost 14 years. for that to go out. So if you are looking at these trucks and maybe you find one with 150,000 miles, and to you that is a lot, knowing what I know, that is not a lot of miles on these trucks. If you kind of got the gist of what I was naming off in mileage, stuff didn't start breaking on this truck until about 200,000 miles. And actually I did forget, it had an alternator just over 200,000 miles. But that's the only thing that I forgot. I made a list out to make sure. So the alternator 200,000 miles. But if you get what I'm saying, nothing went wrong until 200,000 miles, other than power steering pump. So it took years and a lot of miles for stuff to really start going wrong on the truck, and I, for one, think that is incredible. Now, that's the older generation Silverado. Let's talk about the newer generation Silverado. You hear about how they don't build them like they used to. I think that's an absolute lie. You know, I may have thought when he first got this truck that maybe that would have been the case. He doesn't have the key in here, but the truck is holding up great for him. It's a little dirty, and he's always on the highway, but this truck has 203,000 miles on it. Now let's start naming off everything that went wrong on the new generation Silverado with 203,000 miles. I'll start at the top of the list, and that is absolutely nothing. Not a single thing. And that's not a joke, I'm not lying. The only thing that has been done to this truck is brakes, tires, and oil changes. It hasn't even had a belt replaced yet. Nothing. Hoses, none of it. 203,000 miles. It's a 2011, which makes it almost 7 years old. Not a single thing has gone wrong. That's saying something for Chevy build quality. You know, you can be a Ford, Dodge, whatever guy you want, but you can't. How do you justify that? You can't say that this truck is crap when it goes 200,000 miles, doesn't have a single issue. That's incredible. But what I do want to say is, I'm sure that there has been a lot of people who have owned this generation truck that have had issues before that. But there's so many variables, like I said at the beginning of the video, that play in, and that could be the same story on this truck. It still has a stock motor. I'm sure there are people out there, actually I know a guy out there who has already had to put a motor in way before 300,000 miles. So it varies drastically. It just depends on what you do with the truck, and it depends on how you treat the truck, and it all revolves around preventative maintenance and taking care of your vehicle. So I appreciate y'all watching. I hope that you found this informative. If you were looking to buy one of these trucks, I hope that helped you out and maybe eased your mind if you were looking at something with a little bit of a higher mileage. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at Austin04_Z71. It'll be down in the description below. Also go down there and tell me if you want to see exhaust or a light bar on mine. Thanks for watching. Take care. Have a great day.